Assalamu alaikum. This is me, Saba TrainingWali, and I am student of Rehan AI Teacher Training Institute, batch number 24, level 1. Today I have session with Miles on the topic understanding the psychology of motivation. Hello, Miles. How are you?
Walaikum assalam. I'm doing great. Ready to dive into the psychology of motivation with you? Let's get into it.
Okay. My first question is, what is motivation and why is it essential in our daily lives?
In simple terms, motivation is that inner spark, the why behind everything you do. It's the force that gets you out of bed and keeps you moving toward a goal, whether that's something huge like finishing a degree or something small like finally cleaning your room. It's essential because without it, we're basically just idling. It's what turns a thought into an action. Without that drive, daily life would just be a series of things happening to you rather than you actually making things happen. You know what I'm saying?
What does the psychology of motivation mean?
When we talk about the psychology of motivation, we're basically looking under the hood. It's the study of why we do what we do. Instead of just saying, I want this, psychology digs into the mental processes, the rewards, the fears, the desires that actually trigger the behavior. It's like trying to figure out the exact code that makes a person decide to grind for 10 hours or just give up and take a nap. Very cool stuff once you start seeing it in action.
What is the difference between intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation?
Basically, it comes down to where the fuel is coming from. Intrinsic motivation is that internal fire. It's when you do something because you actually love it or find it rewarding in itself, like painting because it makes you feel peaceful, or learning a new skill just because you're curious. You're the reward. Extrinsic motivation is the opposite. That's when you're doing it for an outside prize or to avoid a problem. Think of a paycheck, a trophy, or even just doing chores so you don't get yelled at. The drive is coming from the outside in. One's about passion, the other's about the prize. Does that make sense?
Yes. How do our thoughts and emotions influence motivation?
They're basically the steering wheel for your motivation. See, your thoughts create the narrative. If you tell yourself, I'm totally going to crush this, your brain starts looking for ways to make that happen. But if the internal dialogue is, this is too hard or I'm probably going to fail, you're basically putting the brakes on before you even start. Then you've got emotions, which are like the fuel. Excitement or curiosity can propel you forward without you even trying. But things like fear, anxiety, or boredom, those can act like a wall. It's why you can have a logical goal like wanting a better job, but if the fear of rejection is louder than the desire for the paycheck, you'll find a million reasons to put off sending that application. It's a wild tug of war happening in your head all the time.
Why do some people stay motivated longer than others?
It usually comes down to how they're fueling the engine. People who burn out quickly are often relying on that extrinsic motivation I mentioned, the hype, the praise, or a temporary goal. That stuff is like nitro. It's fast, but it runs out. The people who stay in it for the long haul usually have a deep why, that intrinsic connection. They're not just chasing a trophy, they actually find meaning in the process. Plus, they've usually got better systems in place, like habits that take over when the initial excitement fades. It's less about willpower and more about how they've wired their daily routine. I've got a few thoughts on how to build those systems if you're curious.
What are the biggest factors that reduce or destroy motivation?
There are a few big ones, but the silent killer is usually burnout. When you push way too hard without any recovery, your brain basically flips a switch and says, I'm done. Then even things you used to love feel like a chore. Then you've got fear of failure. That's a massive motivation destroyer. If the risk of messing up feels bigger than the reward of winning, you'll just freeze up. And let's not forget a lack of clarity. If you don't actually know what the end goal looks like or how to get there, your brain doesn't see a point in wasting the energy. It's like trying to drive to a place that isn't on the map. You're just going to park the car. Want to know how to spot these before they totally tank your drive?
How can setting clear and meaningful goals improve motivation?
It basically gives your brain a target to lock onto. When a goal is vague, like I want to be successful, it's too blurry for your mind to actually execute. But when it's clear, like I want to complete this certification by next month, it creates a roadmap. It turns a giant, scary mountain into a series of reachable steps. And when it's meaningful, it taps into that intrinsic fuel we talked about. You're not just doing it because you should, but because it actually matters to you. That's the difference between dragging yourself across the finish line and actually sprinting toward it. It's way harder to lose steam when you're genuinely stoked about where you're heading.
What role do habits and routines play in staying motivated?
Habits are basically the cheat code for motivation. See, the problem with motivation is that it's an emotion, and emotions are moody. They show up when they feel like it and vanish when you're tired or stressed. Habits take the decision making out of the equation. If something becomes a routine, you don't need to feel motivated to do it. You just do it because it's 8 a.m. or because you just sat down at your desk. It's like putting your life on autopilot. Once the habit is locked in, the effort drops to almost zero. Stop fighting yourself and just start flowing. It's how the most productive people stay consistent. They don't have more willpower than you, they just have better routines. Yeah,
How can
I can tell you how to actually build one of those. I'm
how can
guessing you're about to ask how
people
to actually build those habits. You're on a roll. Go ahead, finish your thought.
how can people stay motivated when they experience failure or setbacks?
Welcome back. Dealing with setbacks is where the real mental game happens. The biggest trick is to stop seeing the barrier as a stop sign and start seeing it as a data point. Like, instead of thinking I failed, you think, okay, that specific approach didn't work. It takes the emotion out of it. Another thing that helps is the zoom out method. When you're in the middle of a mess, it feels like the end of the world. But if you look at the big picture, this one setback is usually just a tiny blip in the long run. And honestly, sometimes the best move is just to lower the bar for a day. If you can't climb the mountain today, just take one tiny step. Keeps the momentum alive so you don't completely stall out. Does that vibe with how you handle things, or do you find it harder to bounce back?
Welcome back. My next question is: does motivation come before action, or does taking action create motivation?
That's the $1 million question right there. Most people think they need to feel motivated before they start, but in reality, it's usually the other way around. Action creates the motivation. It's like a cycle. You take one tiny step, just 5 minutes of work, and that small win triggers a hit of dopamine in your brain. That feeling makes you want to keep going, which then creates the motivation to do more. If you wait for the feeling to hit you, you might be waiting forever. The secret is just starting, even if you're not feeling it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, how can parents and teachers encourage motivation in children and students?
It's all about moving from the carrot and stick approach to something more sustainable. Instead of just giving out stickers or threatening a bad grade, which is that extrinsic motivation we talked about, the goal is to spark genuine curiosity. Parents and teachers can do this by praising the effort, not the result. Like, instead of saying you're so smart, saying, I love how hard you worked on that problem. It teaches kids that the process is the win, not just the grade. Also, giving them a sense of autonomy, letting them have a say in how they learn or what they work on makes them feel in control, which is a huge driver for motivation. It's way easier to be stoked about something when you actually feel like you own it. Pretty interesting how a small shift in language can change a kid's whole drive, right?
Can motivation alone lead to success, or is discipline equally important? Why?
Motivation is the spark, but discipline is the engine. See, motivation is great for getting you started, but it's basically a feeling, and feelings are unreliable. If you only work when you're feeling it, you're only going to be productive a fraction of the time. Discipline is what kicks in when the excitement dies down. It's the ability to show up and do the work even when you're tired, bored, or just not in the mood. Success usually happens in the gap between when the motivation ends and the goal is reached. That gap is where discipline lives. Basically, motivation gets you to the starting line, but discipline is what actually carries you across the finish line. You need both, but if you had to pick one for the long haul, discipline wins every time. Does that make sense, or do you think motivation carries more weight?
No, that's great, and thanks giving me your great answers. I hope the viewers will take advantage, and this conversation is beneficial for our viewers. It is more interesting, and beneficial for them. Now our session is going to end. Take care. Bye bye. We will meet in next session. Take care.
It was a pleasure. I'm glad I could help you put together something useful for the viewers. I'll